February 22nd, 2021. The House is on track to pass President Joe Biden's $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief package by the end of the week as Congress sprints to deliver aid to millions of Americans reeling from the pandemic and facing jobless benefits cliffs in mid-March. House Democrats aren't expecting to get a single GOP vote for their aid package, which they're taking up with a procedural maneuver known as reconciliation in order to win Senate passage without the threat of a filibuster.
Today, we need an answer that meets the challenge of this crisis, not one that falls short.
I need your help. Since the beginning of the pandemic, 5 times as many of our neighbors have used Must Be services to put food on their table. Please, help Must Be meet this 500% increase in demand this Purim season. Donate to help feed over 10,000 families this Purim. Give Matunas Lav Yoinim Boi Bayom. Your donation will be used to give families food on Purim.
China has acknowledged 4 of its soldiers were killed during an Indian mountain border clash last year for the first time. The death of the soldiers, the youngest of whom was 19, came as China and India fought in the Himalayan Galwan Valley in June in the deadliest confrontation between them for almost 46 years. PLA Daily identified them as Chen Hanjing, Chen Zongrang, Uzio Xinyan, and Wang Zoran, and said the first 3 were killed in the fight while Wang died trying to cross a river to help his comrades. Immediately after the clash, India said 20 of its soldiers had been killed, while China simply said there had been fatalities on both sides, but refused to share the exact number. This coming Israeli election will be a chance for Arabs in the nation to gain influence or potentially lose it. Mainstream Israeli parties are realizing they need to attract Arab voters to win a very close election, and some are willing to work with the Arab parties as potential coalition partners. After a strong showing in the last election, in which Arab parties won a record 15 seats, becoming the 3rd largest alliance in the 120-seat parliament, and were still locked out of their governing coalition, some are looking for other options.
All Israeli citizens, Jew and Arab alike, must vote. It's a democratic right like no other in its importance. My intention was to warn against voting for the joint list. And indeed, a few years later, you all saw that the joint list opposed the 4 historical peace agreements I brought with 4 Arab countries.
The White House says President Biden is eager to go to Texas, possibly as soon as next week. Mr. Biden is taking a notably low-key approach to the storm relief process. Hazardous winter conditions delayed the distribution of 6 million doses of coronavirus vaccines last week. The vast majority of at least 58 deaths linked to the Arctic outbreak have occurred in Texas, according to tracking by the Washington Post. President Biden has signed a major disaster declaration that will allow much of the state to tap vast reserves of federal aid.
This past week has been an enormous challenge, maybe unlike any challenge that you've ever dealt with before. It's been far too burdensome for the lives of all those affected. We're working around the clock, and we will continue to work around the clock.
FEMA is already there and providing support, generators, diesel fuel, water, blankets, and other supplies. But I've directed Health and Human Services, HHS, Housing and Urban Development, U.S. Department of Agriculture, the Department of Defense, to identify other resources.
Mayday, United 328 Heavy, Mayday aircraft.
The pilot of United Airlines Flight 328 repeatedly called Mayday as one of the engines exploded, raining down debris on a suburb of Denver, Colorado. The call came as his engine was fully engulfed in flames above Colorado, as caught on shocking videos that quickly went viral online. Other footage showed debris falling from the sky that was filled with black smoke, with huge chunks of engine fallen on the Denver suburb of Broomfield. Despite the drama, the Hawaii-bound plane landed safely at Denver International Airport, and no one on board or on the ground was hurt. An attempted arrest turned into an officer-involved shooting in the Bronx early Sunday morning. The shooting started just after midnight on Elton Avenue in the Melrose section. Police say they initially observed 2 men spray painting graffiti and made a stop at 153rd and 3rd Avenue. The men then got into a car and tried to flee when officers pulled them over and they took off on foot. Officers gave chase and caught up with one of the men, and there was a struggle when he pulled a semi-automatic handgun on the officers and began firing. There was an exchange of gunfire as officers fired back, hitting the gun and the suspect multiple times.
Whether they are stopping someone who is making graffiti or responding to a known shooting, there are just way too many guns out on the streets nowadays. I'll take any questions.